Happy New Year! 2022 is finally here, and a lot of people have their tradition of starting the year with New Year's resolutions. That's something I've never done. I've always felt that if something was important enough for me to decide I'm going to do it at the beginning of the year, it's probably important enough for me to just decide I'm going to do it right then and there. Studies show that about 60% of us make New Year's resolutions each year. Sadly, only about 8% of us achieve them. I found that when I coach my clients who are disappointed in their ability to keep their resolutions, asking 3 questions is helpful in getting them back on track. My first question is, how realistic were you about where you were starting? My second question is, how realistic were you about where you were going? And my third question is, how realistic were you about what it would take to get there? Answering these questions leads people to the discovery of a disconnect in setting themselves up for success at the onset. When we fall short of our self-imposed expectations, I really believe it's because we aren't being realistic to start with. That's a crucial step between making a resolution and achieving success as we define it to be for ourselves. Success is tricky. Success, there's not always a one-size-fits-all. The major differences between making a resolution, setting a goal, and setting an intention can be explained quite simply, just like this. Typically, a resolution resolves to change an undesired trait or behavior or otherwise improve one's life at the start of the new year. Goal setting, however, involves the development of an action plan designed to motivate and guide a person toward a goal. And intention setting means to act to make it happen. I like to challenge my clients to decide what they can stop, start, do more of, or do less of to make their resolution a reality. So, when the practice of declaring a New Year's resolution is a noble one, we need to be intentional about taking action toward making the resolution something we achieve through the realistic development of attainable goals. And these goals need to be aligned with intention. This year, how about we try something different, and instead of declaring New Year's resolutions, we set our intentions for the new year. We're still trying to discover what the next normal is for us as individuals, as employees, as employers, as a society. One of the things that I like to share with my clients whenever they're making a decision about a potential next step to address any circumstance is to think about 3 questions. Is it the right thing? Is it the right thing for me? And is it the right thing for me right now? That's the important thing. Let's unpack those 3 questions. When it comes to setting our intentions, remember, not New Year's resolutions, but intentions, I like to share a framework that I discovered a few years ago. Now, if you're in the profession of any industry, everyone's heard of goals, and most people have heard of SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. These are action steps. How many people are aware of Aim SMART goals? AIM is an acronym for acceptable, ideal, and middle, and it forces you to think of goal attainment as it aligns with intentions in terms of stages. What's your acceptable outcome for a goal? What's your ideal outcome for a goal? And what's the middle ground that allows you to recognize that although I'm not quite there yet, I'm not as far off as I was when I started? Here's the thing about goals. I have found that too often in business, we tend to set all or nothing goals that don't necessarily foster the ability to manifest intentions. And as individuals, we do the very same thing. For me, after 2 years of intermittent stress eating as I coped with a pandemic that is determined to hang around, on top of finishing up a holiday season of eating and throwing caution to the wind in terms of calorie counting, I'm feeling the need to lose a few pounds. Can anybody else relate? The usual goal is 20. Otherwise, we don't feel successful. Well, how about those first 2 pounds that lead to the 20? Those would be acceptable, right? Or how about when you hit that 10-pound milestone? That's the middle, and you're halfway there. Or when you finally do hit those 20 pounds, that's the ideal. Unless we celebrate those acceptable and middle markers along the way, we do ourselves a great disservice in terms of allowing ourselves to experience goal attainment in increments versus all or nothing achievements that could derail our intentions or our ability to make shift happen. Let's look at this using another analogy with the Aim acronym. Remember, the A is acceptable, the I is ideal, and the M is middle. We've heard the saying, and I saw it on a poster not too long ago, that if you shoot for the moon and land among the stars, you're still on high ground. And that's so true. When we reframe shooting for the moon and landing among the stars as an aim smart goal that's aligned with intention, the acceptable would be moving from the blue atmosphere to the black atmosphere. Clearly, you've made some progress. The ideal, of course, would be to land on the moon, and the middle is falling among the stars because you're still on high ground. You've still made progress toward landing on the moon. When I was sharing this notion with a recent client group, one of the members said, "Well, how come it's got to be the moon? Why can't it be Mars?" That thinking may require us to reevaluate our original intention according to whether it was the right one for us for now. That perspective takes us back to something I said earlier about evaluating our goals to see if it's even the right thing. And then she said, "Well, if we land among the stars, can we take a shuttle to the moon?" That would be exploring the question, is this the right thing for me? And it's always good to constantly question ourselves to make sure that the wall we're leaning our ladder against is the right wall. And then she said, "Why does it even have to be the moon?" Which begs the question, is it the right thing for me right now? Taking us right back to intention. You can see there's a loop. Sometimes we may need to hang out among the stars for a while to figure out if landing on the moon is really the intention, and if not now, when? And what can we accomplish among the stars that might better prepare us to land on the moon when the time is right? So, let's think about this. There are so many ways to design our goal attainment strategy in alignment with our intention according to what works for us. What works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. And that takes me to another thought, resiliency. How are you defining that for yourself, especially when you think about the last 2 years? There have been some situations in which we found ourselves asking, how are we ever going to get through this? And now that we've made it to 2022, we might realize that it may not have been that bad after all. How can I possibly say that? Because we made it. What was it about your level of resilience that helped you get from 2020 to 2022? And have you taken the time to recognize and celebrate your resiliency in all its various forms? This month, I want to help you set your intention for 2022 and make shift happen by first recognizing just how resilient you are. Last year, a lot of things came together for me, and I want to share something that I hope will help you. It's a little book I designed called Everyday Resiliency, a 30-day reflective art journal. It chronicles a period in my life when I actively experienced the process of metacognition, which is simply thinking about what I was thinking about. Drawing and journaling my thoughts committed them to visual and written expressions of the who, what, when, where, why, and how during a reflective 30-day journey that allowed me to see just how resilient I had become during some of my most challenging days. Very soon, you can get this insightful tool on my website at dranita.com. In the meantime, I encourage you to check out an article entitled 10 Secrets of People Who Keep Their New Year's Resolutions. Now remember, we're shifting from resolutions to intentions. However, I think there's some valuable information in this article that we can all benefit from. I've included a hyperlink at the end of this podcast for your convenience. To help brainstorm your intentions for 2022, be sure to join me for the entire month of January. We'll first start by having a chat with my allies and action crew to see what they're focusing on that might inspire your journey. Then, in my lived experiences segment, we'll be talking with my dear friend Stuart Newton to hear his perspective about the article, 10 Secrets of People Who Keep Their Resolutions, and see how much of his secret sauce for success he's willing to share with us. Finally, we'll wrap up the month by having a real conversation with a financial whiz and subject matter expert, Mr. George Thompson, founder and CEO of Thompson Wealth Management. He'll provide some realistic strategies for getting our financial health in order. If we've learned nothing else over the past 2 years, we know that volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity will continue to be with us for quite some time. And now more than ever, we need to be intentional about our finances. Until next time, this is Dr. Nita reminding you to set your intention to have a great 2022 by staying blessed and always keeping it real.